Mark Santiago here, and welcome to the Empowered AF podcast, where each episode we share powerful strategies to help you communicate, act, and lead like an empowered man. Thanks for joining me. Hey guys, welcome back to Empowered AF. I've got my main man, my Thrive lead coach, Andrew, with me. Andrew, Lori, and I are going to be discussing a lot of topics, but mostly we're going to be focused on emotions. Isn't that right?
Yes. Today, the big one is emotions, definition, what people feel, how to feel, and the difference between feelings between everybody, including men and women.
Yeah, that's a big one. You know, we just did a communication masterclass recently where we talked about the brain for a man and how it's wired differently, and how research shows why men really struggle with communicating their emotions and their feelings. So if you haven't checked that out, we're going to be relaunching that masterclass as a replay. You can actually purchase it. We'll probably have the link up by the time this is active. We'll probably put it in the show notes. So look for that comms masterclass, communication masterclass below. So what about emotions? Like, where do you want to start with this? This is a big topic.
This is a huge topic, right? And I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing in the world right now is emotions are being played on day in and day out, right? And then we see in our program these guys that have no idea what their emotions are doing to them. They don't know how to get in touch with them. They don't know how to feel them. And they definitely don't know how to communicate them, not only to their partners, but other people. So I wanted to start off with, when we talk about emotions, what's Mark's definition of emotions and what they do to the body?
So I look at emotions as like the check engine light on your dashboard. You know, it's really about, okay, there's something inside of me that's not right. And a lot of guys will have that check engine or the gas light on, and they're like, I'm just going to keep driving until this thing fucking blows up. And so they drive their life. They bury everything in the shit. And then all of a sudden, their wife says, I don't want to be with you anymore. And that fucking thing just explodes. Because men's egos are so fragile. And really what they're experiencing is a hit to the ego. Like, this is an interesting concept. And I think you and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. It's something I haven't really focused on much. But it's this idea that when a man is rejected by his wife and she has said, I want out, or I'm doing this, I'm having an affair, whatever, your instant reaction is, no, I don't want to lose you, which is all about control. Has nothing to do with the person, has everything to do with you losing something you thought you owned, because men are possessive by nature. We possess land, we possess assets. We look at our wives as possessions. If we're not careful, instead of looking at her as a human being who has her own life and is separate from you, we live codependent worlds where we look at her as a possession. So I would look at emotions as a dashboard light that's saying something's going off, and it's up to you to decide, do I stop and look under the hood, or do I continue on until I just can't do it anymore?
Right. Yeah, amen. And it doesn't need to be necessarily just be there, right? It could be with emotions. It's all right, let me let it go. I feel these things. I don't know if I want to check in. And then all of a sudden something just hits. It could be, wife saying, I want to separate, wife saying, I don't love you anymore. It could be as simple as fucking the milk dropping on the floor. And then all of a sudden, here comes asshole Andrew, here comes asshole Mark. But where's it coming from? Yeah. Right. And I know that's a big one for us, because that's one of the main reasons when I became a client, that asshole thing was like, all right, where's it coming from? I don't like this person, but where's it coming from? And that's that check engine light, and that's those emotions.
What I liken it to is, and we talked about this in some of our programs, we talk about the idea between internal pain and external pain. Right. And the internal pain is the pain we've never actually dealt with that's still in our body, because your body literally keeps score. There is a book called Your Body Keeps Score, and it's about trauma. And even if you weren't abused, you still experience trauma in your life. And it stays in your physical body, in your cells, until it's released in a healthy way, until you've gone through some sort of healing journey, healing work. And even in that, it's a lifelong process of healing, right? Like, we don't just like heal overnight and that's it, and there's nothing else to do. There's no other work to do. I wish it was that simple, but it's not. It is a continuous process that we're in. And so what happens is guys have internal pain of rejection. They have internal pain of abandonment. They have internal pain of they're not valuable, whatever their parents or whatever kids or maybe a former girlfriend taught them or a former wife taught them. And all that pain is inside. And then all of a sudden, the external pain of your wife saying, I reject you, I don't love you, whatever, suddenly triggers the internal pain. Because you're living this buried life. If you're a guy who's not showing up for his kids, if you're a guy who's not showing up for his wife, if you're a guy who's burying himself in all kinds of shit and addictions and whatever, can't get off the Xbox, can't stop hunting or whatever, can't stop playing golf because you don't want to face your shit, you're that guy right now. You're living in a ton of internal pain and you're not. And so when external pain comes, you don't have a fucking gauge for how to deal with it. And so therefore it becomes this attack on your ego, and your ego is fragile. So I like to ask guys all the time, like, is it really about your wife or is it really about you? Because if it was about your wife and you really cared about her, you would give her space and you'd be like, oh my gosh, I hurt this amazing woman. I need to give her space to figure out what she wants, but I'm not going to control and manipulate her because love does not manipulate. Love does not control. Love is free, in my opinion.
Right. And it's funny you bring that up because we see this a lot with our guys, right? Oh, I want her to do this. I want her to do that. And then in my life, she came to me and she said, you're not chasing me. You're giving me those time and space that I asked for. I'm like, yeah, it's exact. Like, that's what I hear. I hear you saying that. And I'm good with that because there's emotion and there's space created, which is something else I want to get into later, where both of us are allowed to have our emotions and everybody's emotions are validated. They're valid.
Totally.
They're true. Because that's your personal check engine. That's your personal life. That something's telling you either something's right or something's wrong.
But guess what?
It's our job.
Good. Finish your thought.
It's our job, me, Mark, to figure out where that's coming from and where that trigger's coming from for us to figure it out. And that's what EQ is at the end of the day. That's what EQ truly is can I check in with myself and can I hold space for somebody else that needs to check in for themselves and maybe just talk about it without getting triggered.
Yeah. And you can't do that.
And that's a crazy place.
You can't do it if you're in a codependent relationship. It's impossible. And that's why guys really struggle with this when they hear. I remember the multiple times my ex-wife did this to me where I felt like a victim. And I say did this to me, meaning where she said something and I felt like a victim. I felt like she was hurting me. I felt like she was stabbing me in the heart. I felt like she was destroying me. I felt all of those things. But at the end of the day, it really comes back to how I respond. Like if a guy can just get over himself and get over his fucking fragile little ego and learn to go, you know what? I'm going to be a man. And what real men do, what real empowered men do is they raise the fuck up. And they decide, I'm going to work on my emotions and my feelings and understand what's going on inside of me because there's no way I can hold space for someone else if I don't hold space for me. And that's the problem because most men don't know. You can't even hear your wife if you don't even hear yourself. So this is that check engine light because you're not checking the engine light. The fucking engine is dead. You're not even going anywhere. You're stuck on the side of the road. You're refusing to look under the hood. It's like your physical body, your physical car can't move. And you're just like an idiot sitting behind the steering wheel going, man, I wish this thing would go. I can't go anywhere. I'm so fucking stuck. It's like, asshole, get out of the car, open the hood and see what's going on. No, I refuse. I'm going to do this on my own. He gets out of the car and he starts trying to push the car. This is what men do. They try to push the fucking car instead of looking under the hood to see, oh, you've got a leak. Your issues are leaking out of you and they've been bleeding onto your wife and you have pushed her away.
Yeah, I mean, that's personal ownership right there, right? If you are good enough to take personal ownership in your shit, your emotions, you can now have space for others in a partnership, in anything, in a friendship, no matter what it is. And that's one of the main things. And that's why one of my ultimate pet peeves, especially at this point, is you make me feel this way.
Yeah.
I can't stand hearing that from people.
No.
You made me feel this way. You did this to me. No. which is one of the reasons why in the first 2 weeks we teach I statements, right? That's the first thing we go through is the I statements, because nobody makes anybody feel some way. Do you feel away by an action, by words, or by something? Yes, but that is your feelings. That is not their intentions. If you took it that way, that's on you. So that's the biggest thing that I've seen, especially lately in our group, is as we are teaching the I feel statements and the emotion wheels, and we all talk about the emotion wheels and all these things. This is where guys start checking in with themselves, and then we see that community of our men just start popping up. Guys, I'm having a terrible night. I'm feeling extremely anxious. I can't get where it is. And then all the other guys, right? It could be 2 a.m. in the morning and these guys are still talking. Hey, we're here for you. What's coming up for you? All these things. Because we have men in our community that have gotten to a place that we can hold space for others within that feeling and walk them through, hey, what are you feeling? Why is that feeling coming up for you? And that's extremely important. The other thing that I love that you bring out ego, because that's our next podcast, and I can't wait to that one because we're going to talk about ego for a good 25 minutes. And I love breaking down ego. It's the biggest thing for me. So let's go back to the men and female aspect of emotions. And you said it starting with communications, right? Our brains are just wired differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's research that show that men's brains are wired differently. They're wired from front to back as opposed to across for the lobes or the hemispheres. So you have the two hemispheres of your brain. Women are more interwired this way, so they've got logic and feeling, and they can actually go back and forth. Where men aren't as wired as interconnectedly. So like we think a little bit more strategically, a little bit more logically, a little less emotionally, and then when we get emotional, we get choked up and we just what I call grunts, because we're like, I feel something, I have an emotion, but I'm not sure what it is. And there's really a difference between emotions and feelings. Emotion is really the expression of a feeling. So you can have feelings, but doesn't mean you have to express them with some heavy emotion, right? The emotion is under your control, and what you do with it is totally up to you. Now, there's always going to be certain circumstances, situations where, like convulsive crying, like I've experienced that, where it was like I didn't feel like I could control any of it. And some of you are feeling that convulsive crying where it's like uncontrollable because you just can't believe this thing has happened. You feel like your wife is dying, and she is, because your marriage is over. Once she walks out, once she says, I don't want to do this anymore, the marriage you had is fucking over. And the only way forward is to get yourself together and create a plan to move forward. So how do you see guys in our Thrive program specifically? How do you see them get together? You mentioned community. Like, tell me more about what that looks like. Because I don't think a lot of guys really understand in Thrive what the power of community looks like.
The main thing for community, and this is holding space for somebody's emotions and feelings. A lot of times what I've seen personally and within the group is our guys haven't had a place where they feel comfortable expressing their feelings and emotions because either ego's gotten in the way, or at some point in their life they were told that you're a man, don't show that. Instead, we do the opposite, right? We're like, no, we got to check engine. We got to get into that engine. We got to see what the problem is. We got to see where these emotions are, where these feelings are coming from, and we need to express them. And we create a space, not only on our calls, but within the group, that if somebody doesn't hold that space, that's who we're going to go against.
Yeah.
We need to have that space open for them, because if they feel comfortable enough to go to essentially strangers, right? These guys in week 1, 2, we're still strangers to them. Week 8, 9, 10, they know us. They trust us. They're texting me all night, hours of the night with different things, which is great. But week 1 and 2, as they open up towards us, other strong men within the group, other men going through vulnerability, and at that time, it makes them more comfortable to potentially, and I say this potentially, open up to other people about their emotions, because they know that it's a safe space to have that conversation and to feel, because their feelings are valid. Their emotions are valid.
And what you described there, I think, is the fundamental difference between going into like a support group, like a Facebook group, or, with your buddies, or even like your pastor, or even a counselor sometimes. I think people are confused, men are confused about the power of a community that is all leveling up at the same time. It's it's probably similar to, you know, if you were in a part of a weight loss group, you don't want just people feeling sorry for you. You don't want people going, oh man, that's so sorry that you ate that hot dog yesterday. Like, gosh, that's terrible. You want people who are like in your face, like, dude, why are you eating a fucking hot dog? Like, do you want to become a hot dog? Or do you want to fucking eat right because you know that's what you need? And it's not about shaming people and their choices. There's not shaming men in what they're doing, but it's about calling them up and calling them forward. So the really the community we've created in Thrive specifically is really high level men who are calling other high level men to a new place. Like these aren't guys that are just completely falling apart. And that's why we try not to let anybody in. If they're so emotional, I tell you, go do our 30-day challenge. If you're listening to this and you're just a basket case, go to emchallenge.com and take our 30-day challenge. And when you get done with that, then join Thrive, because that will help you with your emotions and regulating your emotions and all those things. But that's the thing, man, is because so many guys are like, oh, well, I've got my support group, I've got my buddies, I've got my people. And it's like, dude, those guys aren't working on themselves like you are, number one. Number two, none of them have been through what you've been through. Or if they have, they usually did it wrong, meaning that they took away some learning like, oh, never trust a bitch again. Or they're all cheaters, or whatever their fucking jaded view of life is, and they project their bullshit onto you so that you have to receive that like, oh, this is the way women are. Oh, this is what they need. And that's bullshit, because these aren't professionals. We are professionals. We have helped hundreds of men go through exactly what you were going through. And so the environment we've created where there's 50 guys or so right now in our Thrive program who are experiencing exactly what you're experiencing are not just the blind leading the blind, but they have a proven process and system that is actually going through it. You who lead that program now were once a client who went through the exact same thing. So what better coach than to have someone who's literally like in recovery, if you will, who's walked his journey and is still experiencing his journey with his wife and where he's at and all those things. He knows exactly what you feel. And that's the difference between, let me talk to a buddy, let me hang out with my beer drinking guys, and they're not going to give you the same straight up answers that Andrew or Joey or myself or anybody else in the program is going to actually give you. I had to make that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think one of the things that I said was emotions and feelings are valid, but we don't validate just to validate. We call people forward in those feelings. All right, why are you feeling this way? How are you feeling this way? Where's it coming from? Oh, well, it's coming because of this. Are you sure? What I hear you saying is actually something completely different.
Right.
So let's look. She. No. I wish I had my button. I'd hit that she button right now. Right? That's not where your emotions come from. Your emotions come from you. And though that emotion is valid, you're putting it onto somebody else. You're putting it onto an action or an item instead of, hey, this emotion makes me feel this, or I have this feeling based off of something that has happened in my life. What can I do to control myself in this situation and level up and feel and check my engine?
Yeah.
And that's where we create the space.
The saddest thing for me is guys are afraid of leveling up.
Yeah.
Like there are guys
100%.
that come in and they're just fucking afraid of leveling up. There's like something in our culture and our society where it's like, it's safer to stay in the middle. It's never okay to go outside of the lines. And if you're a guy who's been stuck in that safety, ask yourself this question: where has that gotten you? Where has that gotten
100%.
you? Because it ain't getting you to the growth you want. The only way to get growth is to get uncomfortable. And getting uncomfortable looks like getting out of your comfort zone. It looks like you being vulnerable to do the work, getting around other men like Andrew, Joey, myself, and these other guys in the program that have fucking just like absorbed the content and absorbed our IP and have turned it into their life, where it's their life's mission. We got guys that tattoo their fucking the Empowered Man logo on themselves. We got a fighter jet pilot who's like bringing our logo up into the sky and like taking pictures of it, and is like it's in his cockpit because he wants to be reminded that he's an empowered man. I mean, that's the kind of shit that happens when you build a community of men who are fighting for each other instead of fighting by themselves.
Yeah. It's what it is it's creating something that has not been taught in too long. Yeah. Right? Like you just said, it's okay to stay in the middle. And if you think one way or another, you're wrong lately.
Oh,
And that's the media. And we're not going to go in. I don't want to go into it. That's not this podcast.
turn this into a political podcast real fast.
Right. But it doesn't matter what side you live on.
Right.
If you think anything of the other side is okay, you are a bad person. And if you feel this way, that's wrong. No. And we actually had a nice long conversation last week on one of our calls about this stuff. And obviously Joey and I love it, right? We go deep on here. But this is the problem in today's society, is literally that. People right now say that the safe bet is the best bet, because why put yourself out there for hurt? Well, I go against that all day, every day, because if you don't put yourself out there to feel that hurt, to feel that happiness, to go for something, you're not living. You're not living today. You're either living for something in the future, or you're so scared of something that happened to you in the past that you're not going to move forward. Yeah. And it's just okay to be right here and be like, oh, I'm okay. I'm doing this. I'm making just enough money. I'm doing just this. And it's okay. No, we're thriving. That's the point.
And that's what happens. That's where most of these guys are. They're in the middle. They're playing it safe. And then suddenly, boom, that 2x4 hits them across the face. I don't love you anymore. I don't want to be married to you anymore. I'm cheating on you, whatever it is. And they're like, holy shit. Because the world they thought they created that was safe was actually fake. And you are living in a false bubble. So if your wife hasn't come to you and has said, I want a divorce, whatever, and you are in a toxic / struggling marriage, you're not really sure where things are at, you need to look at you. Stop worrying about her and start looking at how you're fucking living. Because if you're living like a little boy, I'll say it nicely, if you're living like a little boy, a little 10-year-old boy who basically comes home to mama and expects his food to be on his plate and expects her to do all the things, the dishes and stuff, and then you go upstairs and you're expecting sex and she doesn't want to give it to you and you're like, you're holding out on me, bitch, blah, 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 because you don't know how to fucking show up and be a man. Guess what? She's not going to. And if you're a fucking narcissist, go cure your narcissism. Go find another narcissist, bitch, who will help get your rocks off. But if you want a real woman, if you want to live a real fucking life, you will show up as a man. It doesn't mean you have to be domesticated and do all, and be a bitch, because there's the opposite of that. And we see that all the time. We have like two polar opposites. And it's like women want somebody who's not necessarily in the middle, but has a healthy masculinity, that looks like, hey, I'm strong, I'm firm, but at the same time, I can listen and I can hear you. That's what they want. They want that safety that goes back and forth, where she knows you're with her, but at the same time, you're going to hear her.
They want a place that they can trust, not only in activities, but in their feelings and their opinions.
Yeah.
And that only comes when you are good enough to hold space for yourself in that same area. And that's what we find. Those are the guys that we can go, you're not holding space for yourself, and therefore you're not holding space for her. So she walked out and cheated on you. Yes, that is wrong. She took that action. That's wrong. But what space did you create to make sure that she was heard, validated, and her opinions were actually taken into consideration?
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah. And there's guys listening to that right now. They're like, oh my gosh, I know you're right. Like, I know I didn't do that, and I didn't own my shit. I didn't do those things. And I want to hear her. I want to do those things. And I'm not going to tell you it's too late, but I'm going to tell you it's too late. And I have this quote. I say, stop buying life insurance on a dead marriage, because so many of you are waiting till she walks out the door to finally do something. And let me tell you, that's an insult to her face, because she's been trying to tell you for years, hey, motherfucker, I need you to change. I need you to wake your ass up, or I'm going to be gone. She's been saying with her actions. Sometimes they say it with their words, but most of the time they say it with their actions. They pull away. They're not emotionally connected. And if you are unaware of that, you will be fucked. And when you come and you're like, oh, look, I've done all these things. I've done all these changes. Oh my God, stop. Please stop. Because women don't give a fuck about your changes. What they want to know is that you became a new man. But that doesn't mean they're going to come back. So if you're doing this for the wrong reason, if you're doing this just to get her back, you will be miserable. How many times have we had guys come into our Thrive program specifically, and they were doing it for her? Suddenly she leans back in and they're like, oh, great, I don't have to do the work anymore. So they disappear. 6 weeks later, she's back out on the street, or she's living somewhere else. She's cheating on him again or whatever. And they're like, guys, please let me back in. Please, can I start over? And why does that happen? Because they were doing it for the wrong fucking reasons, which meant that any growth you had gotten was not done for you. It was done to save your ego. And it didn't even have anything to do with her. That's the fallacy. They're believing that it's, oh, I'm just doing it to save her. No, you're not. You're doing it to save you. You're doing it to save your emotions. Instead of working on yourself in a healthy way, you're trying to save yourself from rejection. You're trying to save yourself from abandonment, whatever that internal pain is, because you don't know how to deal with the external pain. So instead, what you try to do is assuage the external pain. Oh, it's going to be okay. I'll change. I'll do these things. I'll do these things to save the fucking ego. I think that sets us up perfectly for our next
one.
Next one.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I can't wait. I love that ego tap.
Yeah, we'll do that in order. So this one will be part 1, and part 2 we'll do on the ego. I don't know. We'll do something on that. Dude, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate it. It's always fun to have these conversations and hash shit out. Hey, this is Mark Santiago, CEO and founder of Empowered Man. I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. However, before you go, I want to give you a special invitation. Now listen, we've got a program that is designed specifically for men who are hurting right now, who are on the verge potentially of divorce, who are facing potential separation or already separated, and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. They're dealing with anxiety. They're dealing with cheating. They're dealing with all kinds of shit. If that's you, I want to challenge you to take the Empowered Man 30-Day Challenge. That's right, the Empowered Man 30-Day Challenge. You can go to emchallenge.com right now and sign up for the 30-Day Challenge. Here's why I think you should do that. If you're hurting, you need to understand why you're hurting. You need to understand what is actually going on. In week 1 of the challenge, we are going to actually rip off that Band-Aid a little bit and coach you through that process. And then we continue to do that process all the way to the point where you start to make decisions that are empowered instead of disempowered. I don't know about you, but I would much rather make decisions from a place of strength than a place of weakness. So if you're facing decisions, if you're facing this anxiety, what do I do? How do I respond? When my wife is being toxic, I don't know what to do. My wife is cheating on me. I don't know what to do. My wife doesn't love me. I don't know what to do. We are going to help you find those answers within. Now, look, this 30-day challenge is probably unlike any other you've been a part of. Why? Because not only do we have daily assignments happening in the program every single day, but you also get live group coaching calls. I said live group coaching calls with myself and my lead coach. That's right. I am a part of this. It's not just some other people doing it. I am there live with you every single week call that we are on. Third part of that is you're going to have a community of other guys that are going through exactly what you are going through. And the best part of this isn't even a fraction of the price we could charge for it. In fact, at some point we may raise the price, but right now it is at a bargain. So go to emchallenge.com, emchallenge.com to take the Empowered Man 30-Day Challenge, and I will see you on the inside.